Let's start this off with a very quick story about the most embarrassing thing that I've ever done in front of a girl. As I was making this graphic, I came to the realization that I was cured. Of what? Of a certain, I guess, ailment. A certain girl, a friend of mine, told me a joke so funny that it made marshmallows pop out of my nose. At the time, I was drinking a Swiss Miss, the ones with the tiny marshmallows. She just sat down beside me, threw the joke down. She was obviously like grossed out, but the thing is, she could not help but to laugh. It was the hardest I'd ever laughed my whole entire life. Had a psychological effect on me, and I could not enjoy marshmallows until I saw these two, which reminded me of marshmallows, which kind of made me crave Swiss Miss, and so I'm cured. It's not the funniest joke I've ever heard, but the way that she delivered it got me dead. No crush on this girl until she did that. And then after, little bit, I guess you could say she charmed me. But unfortunately, she thinks I'm gross. End of story. I hope you enjoyed that. That was less than a minute. Let's move on to the video. What's up, everybody? It is I, Hero Ninja, and welcome to the 4th episode of the Rose Cup Meta Simplified Guide. And today we're gonna talk about the fairies. If you haven't seen episode 1, 2, 3, check out the playlist right there. And also, if you're looking for episode 5, just wait for it, right? It'll be there when it's out. Now, if you're considering a fairy type that I am not covering in this video, please just follow along with the matchups and compare and contrast to these ones. Let's start it off with the fighters plus Rhyperior, which is the fairies' bread and butter. Now, the matchups for the fairy types are actually pretty clear. It's not gonna take you more than maybe like 5% of your brain power to memorize these. But the true mastery of the fairies comes from knowing when to block and also when not to block. That's what I want you to focus on in this video, because if the fairies can give you the switch advantage and the shield advantage, that's gonna be massive. Clefable versus the fighters plus Rhyperior. Do not block. This is the closest matchup, right? Rhyperior with maximized stats, okay? You're still gonna get it, okay? 3 HP, you have 60 energy, you can throw on the next Pokemon to maybe give you the shield advantage. Now for Wigglytuff, you have to block 2 matchups. The first one, close combat matchup with fantastic stats. Without like the best IVs, it's not gonna get there, right? So how do you count a close combat for matchup? If for some reason the matchup gets to 7 counters, remember it, 7, okay? How do you remember that? Death by muscles, okay? Death, Scythe, once again, 7, because scythes are shaped like 7s, yes, 7 counters to a close combat. If you don't remember it and you don't block this close combat, it is gonna be the worst feeling in the world. Now, the second matchup that you have to block, Rhyperior. So for Medicham, no need to block, right? But for Rhyperior and Machamp that gets up to 7 counters, definitely block. Obviously, the pure fairy type, Clefable, takes the advantage with the fighters plus Rhyperior. Moving on to the steel types, the only matchup that we really have to talk about is Steelix. For Clefable versus Steelix, it depends on both IVs and if you can block the Earthquake, right? So throw straight Meteor Mash and try your very best to block the Earthquake, right? But if the Steelix has really bad IVs, as you can see, it's a clear win. It doesn't matter if you get hit with the Earthquake. If you land this Meteor Mash, it will kill it, right? With bad IVs. With really fantastic IVs, Steelix here can actually survive your second Meteor Mash to get to his second Earthquake. Now, the thing is, if you block one of these, it might not make a difference, but it is very, very close. If you block one Earthquake and let's say your opponent goes straight Earthquake, it actually survives with 1 HP, right? But it's a lot closer if you're able to block the Earthquake, right? So having your Clefable kill the Steelix, I think is a possibility. Now for Wiggles here, if you have bad IVs, you're gonna need to block the Earthquake, right? So if you're able to block this Earthquake, you win. But the thing is, Steelix has 2 chances to get the shield bait. Now, if you have a high stat product, low ranking Wigglytuff, meaning like less than 100, rank 100 below, maybe 50 below, but you can actually check the specific IVs right here, right? It doesn't matter. It really does not matter, okay? It looks like a CMP tie, right? It actually looks like it's gonna get to the cruncher before you do, but the thing is, it's gonna do 36 damage to you and you have like 50 HP, right? So even if it gets that crunch off, it's not gonna kill you. And so the steel types, yes, are a bad situation for the fairy types, but Wigglytuff, Wiggles, takes the advantage here because with fantastic IVs, it beats Steelix clearly, okay? And that is straight blasphemous to all the steel types. That is disrespectful. Moving on to ghost type coverage, and it looks pretty clear except for Haunter there, but there's actually a lot to learn from these matchups. There's a lot of tricks. Let's start off with Clefable versus Alolan Marowak. My one tip, don't block and throw Psychic, right? The thing is, depending on what Alolan Marowak does, your Psychic might actually get to the point where you actually kill Alolan Marowak, so it has to block. Now, just as an example here, if Alolan Marowak throws straight Bone Club, which it usually wins in the one shield scenario, right? You can actually kill it. And also, you get the chance to get the debuff. So, don't block, throw the Psychic, take the L. Now, even if Wigglytuff is the much better Ghost type player, I would say that Clefable is much better for this matchup because Wigglytuff shouldn't be able to get Alolan Marowak to shield. So my advice is, if you're able to throw this play rough and you don't get the shield, right? If your opponent knows that you can survive a play rough from a Wigglytuff, you can block this Bone Club. And this is just for if you want to keep the switch advantage, right? The third Bone Club. If you block the third Bone Club, you kill it. Alright, so just as a what's up, I was gonna keep the switch advantage. I'ma block this, okay? But if you don't want to lose the shield advantage, just don't block. It doesn't matter, right? And also, if your opponent blocks this, just keep the shield advantage. It's all good, take the L. So even if Alolan Marowak is a bad matchup for the fairies, you can actually angle it or play it to your advantage. Now, for Sableye, you don't have to block, you just charm down, and then you throw at the next Pokemon. It is a fantastic matchup. Pray that you get this. Wigglytuff versus Haunter is another fantastic matchup. You do not need to block in the fresh matchup, right? The thing is, it's actually pretty close to getting a Shadow Ball when it dies. Very close, right? So if you're swapping in, maybe consider blocking once, right? But the thing is, you can tank one. And so that's a pretty sure matchup for Wigglytuff. But for Clefable, you have to block the Shadow Ball because you don't resist it, right? You cannot tank that Shadow Ball. How do you remember Shadow Ball? How do you remember Shadow Claw to Shadow Ball? If you watched episode 3, the mnemonic is Deadly Balls. Alright, Deadly Balls, Deadly Scythe once again, Death, Scythe, 7 Shadow Claws to a Deadly Ball. Wigglytuff is obviously the much better Ghost type slayer. Same type coverage, Fairy type coverage is all about the charm tricks, right? So there's multiple ways to do this. Multiple people have covered it. Let me give you some ideas. You can try to go straight charm down, farm down, and block once, and if your opponent throws, you're gonna win. If both of you do this, it's gonna be down to IVs, right? So this is with default stats. Let's say Wigglytuff has better stats, alright? It's gonna pick up the win. But now for some deeper stuff, right? So for Wigglytuff versus Clefable, Clefable has the cheaper charge move, right? So if it throws, you have no choice but to block it, because if you don't block it, you're just giving up switch advantage. That's it, right? At least if you block, you're trading shield advantage for switch advantage. And so Clefable gets the shield advantage and Wigglytuff gets the switch advantage. Now, is that a good or bad thing for either side? It depends on what you have in the back. Switch advantage will favor hard counters. If you have a hard counter, it's okay if you give that shield because your hard counter will not need to block to beat whatever it needs to beat. What you really need with the hard counters is you need to get them to land on the right Pokemon. Hence, you need that switch advantage. Hence, the switch advantage favors the hard counters. For the shield advantage side, that kind of favors Pokemon that are a little bit squishy but need energy and need to land certain moves to kill their opponents. Let's say Alolan Marowak, right? The thing is, the situation is that Wigglytuff has a charged up Ice Beam, right? Let's say you have Alolan Marowak in the back with Clefable. After you do this, you can come in with your Alolan Marowak, tank this Ice Beam, farm down the rest, and now you have a really good setup for a sweep. I don't think that either one here really wins or loses. It's just a matter of how your team is built up, I guess, and also knowing this information is gonna let you make the right choices. Finally, the flying types. There's not a lot to talk about with this, just the Glide boys, right? Gligar, Gliscor. The thing is, the fairy types are actually very good anti-Gliscor, anti-Gligar Pokemon. There is one scenario that could happen that could turn around the match. So this right here is for all the matchups. It's a very simple explanation. Again, the fairies are fantastic anti-glide boys, right? But there is one thing, one situation where it could turn around the match, right? And that is if you get the boost. Okay, you get the boost. This is a +2 attack, right? And then you land the earthquake or the dig for Gligar, okay? So if you get the boost with the Night Slash, if you bait, you get the boost and then you land the earthquake or the dig, you can actually kill the fairies. That's it. Now, how likely is this to happen? What percent chance is it to proc the boost? It's 12.5%, right? So that's not that high, but it's still a possibility. But overall, I would say that you just kind of like look at this as the fairies are really good anti-glide boys. And so if you need an extra hard counter to the fighting types, no blocking, even if it's close combat matchup, even if it's a superpower from Rhyperior, then Clefable is your fairy. What if you're looking for a ghost type slaying fairy, or actually a steel type slaying fairy, because with fantastic IVs it clearly beats Steelix, then a fantastic IV high stat product, Wigglytuff is your fairy. But that's gonna be it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope you learned something. If you want to support the channel, check out my Patreon, and big shouts out to all my Patreons. Thank you so much for supporting everything that I do. Now, the short story at the start of the video is kind of like a test because I will be putting out vlog type content soon, and I guess it's gonna have some stories kind of like that. And I was wondering what you think about it. If you have any feedback, comment down below. Did you enjoy it? Are you wondering what the joke was? It's actually a very simple joke. It's also Pokemon Go, Pokemon related. Is this girl a Pokemon Go player? Actually, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've talked to her, so I don't know what's going on. Now, I'm gonna try my very best to deliver it as best as I can, but I don't think it's gonna be the same because she slayed it, alright? So what happened was, she just sat right in front of me as I was drinking my Swiss Miss and she said, "Hey, can I squirtle all over those Jigglypuffs?" But again, thank you so much for watching. Remember to leave me feedback down below. Did you like the story? Would you be interested in watching vlog type content of me, sharing some funny anecdotes from my life? Yeah, comment down below. Check out my merch. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Ding that notification bell. And I'll see you on the next one. Squirtle on them Jigglypuffs. Bye, guys.